Hello everybody, I'm Evan Kamiko, and this is March. Each week, join myself and an expert line panel dissect the latest sports news from some of the nation's most elite college programs right here in Bloomington to the biggest stadiums and stages around the world. Stick around because we have a great show for you coming up on the Toss-Up. Tournament time for both the men's and women's basketball teams. But this week we start with the hottest team in town, Terry Morin's Indiana Hoosiers. The squad finished 27-2 this season, winning the Big Ten and getting the #1 seed in the Big Ten tournament. With the national championship in sight, how far will this Hoosier team go in both the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament? Today we have a stacked crew to talk about both of those. That's Amanda Foster from Inside the Hall, Matt Sebree from the IDS, and our very own Audrey Hausberger. Audrey, I feel like I see you all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I am an iOS TV.
Yeah, right?
So
I'm
here a lot.
It makes sense, Matt. Amanda, thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Yeah,
all right, Amanda, I'll start with you. That was a tough loss. I watched it as a fan against Iowa, seeing Caitlin Clark throw up that buzzer beater. What are your thoughts after that loss?
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts. Anybody would, I think, watching that game. But the thing that has stuck with me most, especially now having a few days to kind of think about it a little bit more, is that game was one of the best games that we will see in the Big Ten this season, in the past few years, in 10 years, whatever. Because teams like Indiana and Iowa, teams like this only come around every so often. You only have players like Caitlin Clark once every 20 years. You only have players like Mackenzie Holmes once every 20 years. And so to have them match up at that level in that environment, no matter what the outcome was, it was a ridiculously good game. And so even though it didn't go Indiana's way, there's a lot of good things that you can take from it.
Matt.
Yeah, I mean, she nailed it. It was a hard-fought game, hard-fought game throughout, in front of an incredible environment. I mean, it was a sold-out game. It had been sold out for like 2 weeks before they even tipped off. Absolute packed house in Carver Hawkeye, and I mean, they obviously exploded right when she made that final shot. And I mean, IU played a hard-fought game. They were in it to win it there until the very end. And if it weren't for that screen by Monica Sonano, I mean, an incredible screen by her to get Chloe Moore McNeil to stumble there, and she wasn't able to recover, obviously. And yeah, I mean, Terry Morin said that was the play she wanted defensively, having Chloe Moore McNeil defend Caitlin Clark one-on-one, but she just couldn't get there. So yeah.
I will say Chloe's defense is incredible. So I think if she had not tripped, I think Caitlin's three would have been contested enough to where she wouldn't have gotten the best look and maybe didn't make that. But yeah, like these two said, it was an incredible game. Great for women's basketball as a sport. Extremely hard to play in Iowa City. So creds to Indiana for being able to go in there and making one of the best players in the nation play the best game of her life. So. And
they needed a miracle to win, of course. Otherwise, they wouldn't have. But it's funny that you mentioned that because Caitlin Clark after the game, said, this is the play that I practice. It's that screen play. But was it a moving screen? I don't know. It didn't look like Sonano was really set and that she was down. So, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I should be. But not.
It was hard to tell on TV.
Matt, you were there. You saw it.
Yes,
firsthand.
I couldn't see it. Watching it live, it was hard to tell. And obviously, I mean, like I think everyone watching on TV, my eyes were just on Caitlin Clark.
Right.
That's where the ball was going. But I mean, watching back, it's real hard to tell. Sonano's really great at setting screens, and it looks like she might get there right in time. It's a close call. I think after the game, Lisa Bluter, the Iowa head coach, mentioned she took that play from the Las Vegas Aces, actually. So obviously not a bad team to steal from.
Definitely not at all. Let's talk more about tournament specifically. It's coming up. This Indiana team, they're #1. Everyone's saying, oh, national championship. So what is their actual floor? Like, how would you describe the lowest that you think they can go, Matt?
In terms of the Big Ten tournament, I think it's the semifinals where they would either meet up with Ohio State or Michigan, most likely. First round, Nebraska or Michigan State, both those teams gave them a run for their money in the regular season. Michigan State actually pulling off the upset, but I just don't see that happening in the Big Ten tournament. But Michigan and Ohio State are obviously both two incredible teams. Leah Brown of Michigan and Taylor Maxwell of Ohio State can both light it up. And if they get hot, I mean, they have the potential to knock off IU, I think. Audrey?
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to say semifinals is the worst that Indiana can do. I don't think it will happen. I think they will get over that Michigan or Ohio State hump. So, yeah, I think that'll be the worst.
Do you have a ceiling? I mean, the ceiling is the championship, so it's tough.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah,
the
there's
floor
no
is,
question.
To be successful. And we'll talk about, in terms of how they are successful, but what's your floor, I should say?
Same as these two semifinals, because you look at the Michigan State-Nebraska game, Indiana's going to play the winner of that, and both of them contested Indiana a lot. Nebraska took them to overtime. Michigan State beat them, like Matt just said. So it's going to be a good game, but there's no reason that Indiana shouldn't come out with a win.
Right.
And kind of moving forward, we'll look at players specifically. Indiana, outside of Grace Berger, Mackenzie Holmes, they're going to be there every game. Who does IU need to step up as that third scorer? And they have plenty. So this is a very easy question, but at the same time, I'm curious to see what you guys think, Amanda.
So my take on this, I guess, is that, so I'm going to say Sarah Scalia, but I think Indiana does not need her to come out and score 20 points and hit 5 3-pointers to win. They can win without her doing that, so that will only add another level to their game, and I think having her from beyond the arc is what is going to set them apart from a lot of the other teams that they're playing, because other teams are going to struggle guarding when you have 3 different possibilities, 4 if you add Grace Berger, because why not, who can make 3-pointers.
Audrey?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Amanda that there's no one player that I think that isn't doing enough and needs to step up at big time. There's so much depth on the team that really they can rely on a lot of different pieces. So my take is kind of who I hope to have outstanding games, and that's Sydney Parrish. I just think she brings so much good energy to the team. I think she's so aggressive, and I think she's really good at disrupting other teams' play. I think she's really good at drawing and ones. I think she's a lethal threat from all over the floor. So I think she could kind of not be like a secret weapon, because everyone knows she's insanely good. But I just think that if she can bring the energy and kind of the aggressiveness that she has all season, that's going to be what sets me apart, or what sets Indiana apart for me.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Amanda. Sarah Scalia, I think, is really going to be vital. I think her hitting shots from deep is going to be vital for IU having success long term here. She went 6 of 8 from deep at Ohio State in that game a few weeks ago. Since then, I think she's only 3 of 14 from deep across the next 3 games. So she's kind of been streaky all season. But I think if she's really hot, I mean, that gives IU a starting caliber scorer off the bench, which we've seen her be able to do. So I think I'm going with Sarah Scalia.
And just adding on with that, because neither of us really touched on her defense, because her defense has improved drastically from the beginning of the season to where she was guarding Caitlin Clark when Chloe Moore-McNeil was on the bench. And so that's another thing that's just going to help Indiana even more.
Yeah, there's so many scores on this team. It's such a fun team. I keep saying it, and seeing the support from Bloomington is awesome. But Matt, you touched upon success. Where does Indiana have to go, whether that's the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament, to deem the season successful? You already won the regular season title. Where does it go now, Audrey?
I think this question depends on if you're a player on Indiana's team or if you're a fan.
Well, you guys are media, so I'm curious. Opinion, not player or fan.
Right, but I, as a media person, have to look at the fan side and the player side. Those are the stories we're telling. So if you're asking Grace Berger, or if you're asking Terry Morin, or if you're asking Mackenzie Holmes, they're going to say if they don't win the Big Ten tournament, that's a bust. If they don't win the NCAA tournament, that's a bust. They're going to credit themselves for the season they've had and all the history they've made, of course, but they have the biggest goals set on the top of their mind. So if you ask them that question, that would be their answer. But if you ask a fan side of the question, it would obviously, fans want them to win the championship in both tournaments. But the Final Four, since they haven't done that, they had in the Sweet 16 last year, Elite 8 before that, I believe. So I think just to see them get to that next step would be a success in people's eyes. Success to me would be Final Four.
Matt?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. It's kind of, yeah, like you said, it's awkward debating the players versus what fans might want from it. Yeah, Terry Moore and the players have repeatedly stressed the job's not done. But, I mean, looking at it factually, they've already had their best regular season ever. And if they're able to just make the Big Ten tourney, or make the Big Ten championship, and then make the Sweet 16, I mean, that's on paper their best season ever. They don't even need to win the Big Ten championship or go past the Sweet 16. Realistically, at this point, based on how they've played this season, I think the expectation is, get to a Final Four and at least get to the Big Ten championship, if not win.
Man.
They pretty much said like exactly all of what I wanted to say. Yeah, Final Four in my eyes, obviously in their eyes, a championship. I think you can look at, like Matt touched on, it's their most successful regular season, which in a way you could stop point blank and say, done, that's success. We got a sold out crowd, we got national recognition, we have this, and like the Big Ten Coach of the Year, the defensive Big Ten Player of the Year, all of those things have already made this their most successful season, so then they can only add on to it in my eyes.
Right. And besides the Marylands, the Michigans, the Iowas, and obviously Indiana, let's go back to the Big Ten tournament. What team that's below the top four, so below those four teams, are you most scared of that can make a run and potentially get that automatic bid qualifier? Matt, I'll start with you on this one.
So I'm going a little offbeat. I think Purdue. Purdue, I mean, they've got a really talented, base of their team. Lasha Petrie obviously tore it up against IU. I think if she gets hot, they have the chance to win their quarterfinal game. And then after winning that, they would go up against Iowa, which they didn't beat Iowa this season, but they did give them a bit of a run. And then they also did beat Purdue Purdue beat Ohio State and Illinois. They've shown they can knock off these good teams. I think if they get hot, if they get right, players are hitting shots, I think they have a potential to knock off even Iowa and make it to the Big Ten semifinals.
That's one vote for Purdue. Are we going to all say Purdue, or is it going to be different? Please tell me it's going to be different.
Oh, I'm going different. Don't worry. I'm going to go Illinois on this one. First of all, because I think Illinois is they've taken a backseat to all of the other teams, these top teams in the Big Ten, kind of rightfully so, but they've been ranked in the top 25 for a few weeks this season. They beat Iowa. They competed with Indiana, Ohio State. So they've competed with these top four teams and scored a lot of points in general. Their offense has been very threatening against these very good defensive teams. And so I think similarly, if they can get on a hot streak, if they can go on a run in the Big Ten tournament and have a little bit of success, they have the kind of team that can very easily build off of that, especially in such a contained amount of days.
Audrey, bring us home.
Yeah, mine's different too. I'm gonna say right outside of the 1, 2, 3, 4 bubble is number 5 Michigan, just because I think Leah Brown is an outstanding. That was hard to say together.
Okay. Words are hard sometimes. Words are hard.
They are. An outstanding player. She's kind of like the key factor for that team. And I think Michigan has a very strong defense. And we've heard coaches at all levels say over and over and over again that defense is what wins tournaments. I don't think they're going to win the tournament, but I think they could make a decent run with such a strong defense.
Well, Audrey, Matt, Amanda, stick around, because coming up after the break, our panel talks about the NCAA tournament, and we make some predictions, because why not? And they're all wrong, or at least mine are going to be. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the toss-up. Again, Amanda Foster, Matt Sebree, Audrey Hausberger. I'm Evan Kamiko. All right, let's make some quick-fire predictions. Indiana, NCAA tournament, where do you think they go? How far do you think they make it? And it's just a that they're going to be a 1 seed. So, Matt, I'll start with you.
I think they make the Final Four. They've got the potential to win it all, but I think they make it to the Final Four and probably don't win there.
I disagree. They will be the champions.
Yeah, they will. That's what I was going to say for everyone wondering. Amanda.
Okay, well, I'm different than all of you then. I can confidently say Elite Eight. If they get beyond that, I will not be shocked at all. But for my own conscience, that's where I stand.
All right, Elite Eight, that's good. All right, we've talked about the big dogs. Let's talk about the little guys, the Cinderella teams, the ones that are always fun. Audrey, I'll start with you. Who's going to be that Cinderella team this year in the NCAA tournament?
You know, I'm going to go with a projected 10 seed, Kansas, just because I think the Big 12 is a decently challenging conference to play in. And they haven't had the best season, but I feel like teams that don't have the best regular season can kind of come in and make waves. They have the number 4 defense in the Big 12. I said this before, defense wins champions, so.
And anytime, all it takes is a team to get hot at the right time, and you're your national champion, Matt.
I'm going to say Gonzaga. They're only an 8 seed in Charlie Cream's latest prediction, but they knocked off Louisville earlier this season, knocked off Tennessee, both in the battle for Atlantis down in the Bahamas. I think they've got the pieces, the potential to make a deep run there, knock off some teams.
Amanda.
I'm going Creighton. They're projected 7 seed. They're 3rd in the Big East behind UConn and Villanova, which we all know are incredibly good basketball teams. They beat Iowa last year in the NCAA tournament. I think they have a lot of those same pieces and a lot of that same ability to come on and make some waves again.
And Amanda, I'll stay with you for the next one. Now let's look at conferences. So not teams, but the conference. What conference is going to have the best showing?
I'm going to go with the SEC on this one, because you have teams like South Carolina, LSU, Tennessee, Ole Miss, who are stacked with talent. And while the SEC might not have like the most numbers-wise team make it the farthest, I think the teams that they do have are the ones that will make the most headlines and make the biggest splashes because of the players they have, the way that they play their games, just how successful they have been, and the history behind them is, I think, far and away the SEC is going to be one of those teams are going to be the most fun games to watch.
Matt?
Yeah, you mentioned the SEC does have the history, but I think this year it's going to be the Big Ten. Coaches have talked about repeatedly Big Ten's toughest conference around this year, and they've got 5 teams who could legitimately, if not should, make the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
Audrey.
I'm going to have to agree with Matt. The Big Ten's just a gritty conference. They have that toughness. I think they're going to be the most successful, yeah.
And we'll go real quick. Who is your Final Four? Amanda, I'll start with you again.
Okay, South Carolina, Indiana, Stanford, Villanova.
Easy.
Yep.
Matt.
I'm going same 3 and different 4th. South Carolina, Stanford, Indiana, and I'll say UConn.
Ooh, changing it up a little. Gio Ariema.
I have the same 3. I have Indiana, South Carolina, Stanford, Maryland.
Ooh, 2 Big Ten teams in
Yeah.
there. All right.
Look at that.
Yeah, I said they were going to be the grittiest team.
Why not?
You're not wrong. So I'll stay with you then. Who's your national championship game and your national champion?
Well, I already said that Indiana will win the
Right,
national
of course.
championship.
So who do they beat then?
I think they will beat I think they will meet South Carolina. It's going to be so hard. It's going to be a tough game, and I definitely could be wrong about them beating South Carolina because South Carolina is incredible. But I do think if they make a good game strategy, like they have all season, and they execute perfectly, they could do it.
And unfortunately, Dawn Staley will not be in a Philadelphia Eagles jersey. Matt, we'll go to you.
I think South Carolina, they're the defending champ. They still have the best player in the country for my money. And I think they probably knock off Stanford, probably a rematch of last year's championship.
All right, Amanda.
I'm going to say South Carolina and Indiana. And while I do think that Indiana has one of the best shots to match up against a team like South Carolina, I don't see how South Carolina makes it to the championship and doesn't repeat just because of the way that team is built.
All right, so now we've talked to the teams. Last question before we wrap up the show. Who's your player of the tournament? Matt, I'll start with you on this one.
I'll say Aaliyah Boston. She's National Player of the Year last year, might be again this year. I think she's going to be, number 1 pick in the WNBA draft coming up. I think she's the best player in the country.
Audrey.
If Indiana's the champion, Mackenzie Holmes is the player of the tournament.
Bring us home.
I guess I mean, too. I just every game she plays, she's so talented and like Matt said, deserved of player of the country.
Could be like player of the
Right,
world.
player of the
No kidding.
The queen of the world.
Well, Matt, Amanda, Audrey, this was so much fun. Thank you guys so much for coming on. And that does it for the show this week. Be sure to continue the discussion and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at IUSCV Sports. With that, there's one thing left to do, so toss it up. Again, nothing. Find out if we'll catch it, and we'll see you next week.